They laughed when you fell. They whispered when you failed. They called you weak, like your silence was proof, like your pain was a punchline. But tell me something. What happens when the one you thought was broken stops pretending to be okay? What happens when the quiet one doesn't stay quiet? Because the truth is, they never saw you. They only saw your wounds. They only saw your hesitation, your scars, your doubt. They saw the fear in your eyes and mistook it for surrender. But you weren't done. You were just loading. You see, people don't respect pain they don't understand. They don't value a storm unless it destroys something. So when you kept standing, when you kept trying, when you kept loving, they thought it was weakness. They couldn't see the monster sleeping behind your smile, the demon pacing behind your patience. But I know you. I know what it's like to cry behind locked doors, to scream into pillows just to feel something, to bury dreams because the world kept shoveling dirt on them. I know what it's like to be called out, but never called upon, to be pushed aside, overlooked, disrespected. You'll never make it. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? You've heard every word, and you held everyone like a blade to your chest, but not anymore. Because this is the part of your story where the villain they created becomes the warrior they fear. This is where silence sharpens into strategy. This is where pain becomes power. This is where you stop waiting for them to believe in you and start proving to yourself that they never had to. Let's make one thing clear. You were never weak. You were surviving a war they couldn't even see. And now that the dust is clearing, now that the mask is slipping, they're about to see what you really are. Not broken, not helpless, not soft. You are the storm they never saw coming. The calm before the collapse. The reckoning they didn't prepare for. And when it's all said and done, they won't remember what they said about you. They'll remember what you did in return. So don't blink, don't flinch, don't apologize, because this is your moment. They thought you were weak, good. That's what made it easy to burn their expectations to the ground. Now watch what rises from the ashes. Let's talk about the kind of pain that doesn't bleed. The kind you carry alone. The kind that doesn't scream. It sits in your chest like concrete. Rejection. You know it well, don't you? The moment they looked right through you, like you were invisible. The job you didn't get. The love that never chose you back. The friends that turned to strangers. The family that made you feel like a burden instead of blood. They didn't just say no. They said you're not enough. And that cuts deeper than any knife ever could. You weren't asking for everything. You just wanted to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. But instead, they labeled you too quiet, too weird, too emotional, too intense, too much. So you shrunk yourself, dimmed your fire, softened your voice. You tried to fit in, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'd stop rejecting you. But it didn't matter. Because no matter how much you gave, they always made you feel like you were asking for too much. And I know, it wasn't just the rejection that hurt. It was what it taught you. It taught you not to trust, not to hope, not to dream too loud. It taught you to settle to silence yourself before the world does it for you. But here's what they don't tell you. Rejection isn't the end. It's the beginning. It's the forge. It's the fire where your real self is built. Because when no one claps for you, you learn to clap for yourself. When no one saves you, you become your own damn rescue. When you're left out, left behind, left alone, you don't break, you build. You build walls not to hide behind, but to climb over. You stop asking why they didn't choose you, and start choosing yourself. And you learn something powerful. That the ones who reject you aren't the ones meant to define you. Let me say that again. Their rejection is not your reflection. It's a redirection. It's life whispering, that's not your door. Build your own. And I get it. The nights felt endless. The silence was loud. You begged for signs, begged for validation, begged for someone to just believe in you. But no one came. And still, you didn't quit. You showed up, even when no one was watching. You got back up, even when no one cared. And that's not weakness. That's not failure. That's power most people will never understand. Because while they mocked you, doubted you, dismissed you, you were learning how to endure, how to survive without applause, how to create in the shadows, how to become unstoppable with nothing but your own fire. And now they'll look again. But this time, they won't recognize you. Because rejection didn't destroy you, it refined you. You've carried the weight of being unwanted. Now carry the strength of knowing you don't need their approval. You never did. The world told you no. Now it's your turn to answer. Not with words, with results. They told you how to live, didn't they? Sit still. Speak softer. Follow the rules. Don't make a scene. Since the beginning, they tried to shape you, to mold you into something safe, predictable, acceptable. They drew the blueprint of who you were supposed to be, and expected you to build your life around it. A quiet life, a small life, a life that made them comfortable. And when you didn't fit the frame they built for you, they didn't change the frame. They tried to break you. They told you to smile more, to dream smaller, to want less. They said, that's just the way it is. As if that's a reason to stay silent. As if you were wrong for wanting more. They expected you to fold, to apologize for your fire, to kneel when they said, stay humble. But tell me, how do you stay humble when the world keeps stepping on your name? They said, get a normal job. Be realistic. Play it safe. But deep down, you knew. Safe kills dreams. Safe kills identity. Safe is where souls go to rot. They wanted you in a cage, polished, quiet, controlled. But you were never meant for cages. You were built for war, for chaos, for something more. They couldn't understand that. So they tried to shrink you, to suffocate the parts of you they didn't know how to handle. They said, this is who you are. And you said, nothing. At first, you believed them. You really did. You swallowed their words like they were truth. You walked their path, wore their masks, played their roles. And it almost worked. Almost. until something in you broke. That moment where you looked around and thought, is this it? Is this what I was made for? To work, obey, die, and be forgotten? Number, you knew something wasn't right. You weren't born to be invisible. You weren't built to be a background character in your own story. You were born to disrupt, to destroy the narrative they forced on you, to burn the old script and write a new one, your way. And here's the truth nobody tells you. Society is terrified of the individual who thinks for themselves. Because when you break free, others will follow. You become a mirror they can't escape, a reminder of everything they buried to survive. And that's why they hated your light, not because it was wrong, but because it exposed them. So they called you crazy, too ambitious, too intense, too emotional, too different. But too much just means you don't fit into their little world. And maybe that's the point. You weren't made to fit. You were made to fight. Not with fists, but with truth, with presence, with power. You broke the chains of expectation. And that takes more courage than anything they'll ever understand. Because standing alone, that's not weakness, that's war. You chose to be uncomfortable, to grow, to evolve, to disappoint everyone who wanted you to stay small, just to become the version of yourself that makes you proud. You became the villain in their story, so you could become the hero in your own. Let that sink in. You were willing to be misunderstood, hated, rejected, just to be real, just to be you. That's not weakness. That's power most people will never taste. So no, you didn't shatter. You shattered expectations. You shattered the lie that you needed to be someone else to be worthy. And in the wreckage, you found something rare. Freedom. The kind of freedom that terrifies the masses. The kind of freedom that says, I don't need your map. I'll build my own path. I'll walk through fire if I have to. But I'm not living a life that doesn't belong to me. Because when they thought you were weak, you were just waking up. Now you see. You see how they tried to clip your wings and call it love. How they tried to tame your soul and call it guidance. How they tried to make you fear your own potential and call it protection. But it ends here. You don't owe them silence. You don't owe them your obedience. You don't owe them anything. You owe yourself the truth. You owe yourself the fight. So let the world call you defiant. Let them say you lost your mind. Because maybe losing the mind they gave you was the best thing that ever happened. There's a moment in every storm where the sky holds its breath, where everything goes quiet, right before the thunder strikes. That's where you are now, in the stillness, in the silence, right before you become something else. You've tasted the fire, you've been burned by it. But what they didn't see is that the fire didn't consume you. It forged you. Every scar, a symbol. Every tear, a lesson. Every time they broke you, they built something far more dangerous. Because pain, real pain, doesn't leave you the same. It either buries you, or it rebirths you. And you chose to rise, not as who you were, but as who you were meant to be. Let me paint it for you. A A warrior, not in armor, not with swords, but with eyes that have seen too much, with a soul that's too stubborn to die, with hands that no longer tremble, because they've held themselves together more times than anyone will ever know. You stopped waiting for permission. You stopped waiting for them to see your worth, because something awakened in you. Something raw, something real, something unbreakable. They thought your pain made you soft. They didn't realize it made you sharp. Sharp like a blade no one sees coming. You learned to walk through fire, and now you carry the flames inside you. This is your power. You didn't numb the pain. You didn't run from it. You let it in. You let it tear you apart. And still, you rebuilt. Not pretty, not polished, but real. You want to know the truth. Monsters aren't born. They're made. Made from heartbreak, from betrayal, from nights filled with silent screams, from being told you're not enough, until your blood boiled with the need to prove it wrong. You didn't become strong by lifting weights. You became strong by carrying everything they threw at you, and still moving forward. Now, you walk different. You speak different. You see different. Because now, you know who you are. You are the quiet before the collapse, the patience before the explosion, the calm before the vengeance. And here's the twist. They still think you're the same. They still think you'll flinch. They still think you'll fold. Let them. Because the best part about awakening is letting them find out the hard way. Let them look into your eyes and realize you're no longer begging. You're no longer proving. You're no longer waiting. You've become your own savior, your own army, your own legend. And you did it in silence. You did it alone. You did it while the world kept throwing dirt on your name. They buried you thinking you'd disappear. They didn't realize you were a seed. Now you've cracked through the soil, and they don't know what to do with what's rising. That power inside you. It's not rage. It's not revenge. It's clarity. It's knowing exactly who the hell you are. Without apology. Because pain doesn't own you anymore. You own it. You turned your heartbreak into hunger. Your doubt into discipline. Your fear into fuel. They thought the fire would break you. But the fire, it built you. So now when you walk, walk like you're made of steel. Because in a way, you are. You've been tested. You've been broken. You've been pushed past the edge. And still, you didn't fall. You climbed. You climbed with bleeding hands and shattered faith. You climbed with nothing but grit and the whisper, I refuse to die like this. And look at you now, still standing, still breathing, still dangerous. You didn't just survive, you transformed. Not into something prettier, into something stronger. This is who you are now. A force, a fire, a future no one saw coming. So when they ask you what changed, tell them everything. And it started the moment you stopped fearing your own power. Go stand in front of a mirror. Do it. Right now. Look into your own eyes. Not past them. Not through them. Into them. What do you see? Is it the same face they called too emotional? Is it the same person they laughed at? The one they said would never make it? The one they left behind? Or is it someone else now? Someone forged in silence, built from rejection, reborn through hell. That mirror doesn't lie. It shows every scar, every crack in your soul, every time you fell to your knees and thought it was over. But look closer. You're still here. So what does that say about you? That you're weak? Number, it says you're relentless. It says you're still breathing when everything tried to suffocate you. It says you didn't fold when folding would have been easier. You didn't run when fear screamed in your ears. You faced it, you endured it, and you grew from it. Now ask yourself this: who are you, really? Not who they said you were, not who you pretended to be, not the mask you wore to make them comfortable. Who are you underneath it all? Because the truth is, you don't find your power by avoiding the mirror. You find it by owning what you see in it. You find it by staring at the reflection and saying, yes, this is me. I've been bruised, I've been broken, but I'm still standing. There's nothing more powerful than a soul that refuses to be erased. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to stop apologizing for surviving. That mirror doesn't show a victim. It shows a fighter, a builder, a survivor. It shows someone who didn't give up when they had every reason to. So the next time you question your worth, look into your own eyes and remember who the hell you are. Because that reflection, it's not broken, it's becoming. There comes a moment in every story where the hero stops running, stops begging, stops explaining, stops bleeding just to make others comfortable. That moment when the pain doesn't just hurt anymore. It ignites something. That's where you are right now. This is the turning point. Not because someone showed up to save you. Not because the world suddenly changed. But because you did. You woke up one morning and said, I'm done waiting. I'm done proving. I'm done being quiet just so they won't feel threatened by my fire. And that voice inside you, the one that used to whisper, maybe I'm not enough, now screams, watch me. That's not ego. That's not arrogance. That's a soul that's had enough. Enough of the lies, enough of the labels, enough of carrying chains that were never yours to wear. Because here's what they'll never understand. When you've been broken over and over again, at some point, you stop fearing the fall. You realize there's nothing left to lose, but everything to claim. You stop chasing approval like it's oxygen. You stop watering dead relationships. You stop lowering your standards just to be accepted by people who wouldn't survive a day in your shoes. This is where everything changes. Not out there, inside. You're not waiting for someone to pick you. You're picking yourself. You're not praying for a break. You're becoming the storm. You're not asking, can I? You're declaring, I will. And suddenly, everything hits different. The disrespect doesn't sting like it used to. The rejection doesn't wreck you anymore. The silence feels like peace, not punishment. Because you've shifted. You're no longer looking for doors to be opened. You're building your own. They thought you were waiting for their validation. Number, you were just building your foundation. They thought your silence meant surrender. Number, It was strategy. This, right here, is your breakaway. This is the part of the story where the person they underestimated becomes the one they can't ignore. Where the nobody becomes the problem they can't solve. Where the outcast becomes the blueprint. And no, you don't need to yell. You don't need to beg. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Because your life, your actions, will say it louder than your words ever could. So take this moment, mark it, because years from now, when they ask you what changed, when they ask how you went from forgotten to unforgettable, you'll point to this moment, right here, right now, when you stopped trying to fit in and chose to rise. Fire doesn't ask for permission. Doesn't wait to be accepted. Doesn't need applause. It consumes. It transforms. It purifies. And that's exactly what you're becoming. Not a spark. Not a flicker. But a wildfire. Lit by pain. Fueled by purpose. And impossible to put out. Let's be honest. Nobody sees the fire when it's just smoke. They don't notice the small burned building in your chest when they dismiss you. They don't hear the cracking inside you when they laugh at your dreams. They don't feel the slow heat rising when they look at you like you're nothing. But you feel it. You always have. And for a long time, you buried it. You told yourself to calm down, to stay composed, to be the bigger person. But inside, the fire never died. It waited, it listened, it grew. And now it's something else. Now it's not just heat, it's fuel. You've taken every insult, every betrayal, every time they said, "You won't make it," turned it into energy. You didn't need motivation. You needed war. And that's exactly what life gave you. See, the strongest people aren't the ones who had the easiest path. They're the ones who had every reason to quit and didn't. They're the ones who fought battles in silence, who trained in darkness, who kept showing up even when the world gave them nothing. You don't build fire by staying comfortable. You build it by walking through hell and refusing to be consumed by it. And that's what you've done. Every time you got knocked down and still got back up, the fire grew. Every time you wanted to break, but didn't, the fire grew. Every time you felt invisible and still kept grinding, the fire grew. And now, it's no longer a secret. Now, it's showing up in your words, in your walk, in your eyes. That's what scares them. It's not your past. It's not your pain. It's your power. Power that came from not being handed a damn thing. The power that came from building yourself in silence. The power that says, I don't need your approval. I don't need your help. I don't need your recognition. I am the fire. And here's what they'll never understand. You don't get stronger by avoiding pain. You get stronger by conquering it. By letting it refine you. By looking it in the eye and saying, you will not define me. You took your heartbreak and made it into armor. You took your mistakes and turned them into muscle. You took your weakness and made it into willpower. They tried to bury you under their doubt. But you weren't buried. You were planted. Now you rise, not with apologies, not with explanations, but with fire in your blood and steel in your spine. People ask how you do it, how you keep going, how you stay strong, how you don't give up. You want to know the real answer? Because quitting was never an option. Because folding would have meant they were right. Because every time you were told to give up, it only pushed you harder. The fire inside you doesn't need motivation. It remembers. It remembers being overlooked. It remembers being doubted. It remembers every single moment where you were left alone in the dark. And now, that same fire is what lights your path. It's what pushes you at 5 a.m. when everyone else is sleeping. It's what keeps you focused when distractions come knocking. It's what keeps you climbing when the mountain looks impossible. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about evolution. It's about rising to a place where they can't reach you anymore. Where their words bounce off your armor. Where their opinions can't even touch your purpose. Because once you've built the fire within, nothing outside of you can burn you again. So let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them mock. They can't kill what they didn't create. And they damn sure can't handle what you've become. You're not here to impress them. You're here to outlast them. You're not here to compete. You're here to dominate. Because the fire within you, it's not just heat. It's not just passion. It's not just emotion. It's your weapon. And now, it's time to use it. There's a moment when the noise stops. Not because they stopped talking. Not because the world got quieter. But because you stopped listening. You stopped needing their approval. You stopped chasing their praise. You stopped shrinking yourself just to fit their shallow expectations. That's what it means to rise. Not with noise. Not with noise. But with presence. You walk into the room now, and they feel you before you speak. They don't know why, but something about you is different. Stronger, sharper, heavier. Like the weight of everything you've carried has turned into gravity. And now, it pulls the world toward you. You don't rise by shouting. You rise by surviving, by enduring, by showing up again and again, until the world has no choice but to notice. Let them wonder how you did it. Let them gossip. Let them try to put you back in the box they built for you. It's too late. You already broke the walls. You already burned the blueprint. You already became something they never imagined. And now they don't know how to handle you. They used to laugh at your dreams. Don't want too much. You're standing at the edge of your own becoming. One path is familiar. It's safe, predictable, easy. The other, it's wild, uncertain, ruthless. But it's real. It's yours. So choose. Not out of fear, not out of comfort, but out of truth. Choose the you that doesn't apologize. The you that doesn't flinch. The you that was born from fire and carved from chaos. Because once you choose to rise, there's no going back. And that's the point. Now it's time. No more waiting. No more wishing. No more sitting in the ashes of who you used to be. This is where everything shifts. You've felt the fire. You've endured the storm. You've tasted hell. Now it's time to build from it. They doubted you. Good. Use it. They left you. Perfect. That's less weight to carry when you climb. They thought you were weak. Then show them what strength really looks like. Not in your fists, but in your focus, in your silence, in your execution. You don't need to scream. You don't need to prove. You just need to move. With purpose, with power, with no apologies. Wake up earlier, train harder, think clearer, cut deeper. Remove every excuse, silence every doubt. Burn every bridge that leads back to your old life. From now on, it's you versus you. Every day, every moment, every breath. Because this life, it's not waiting for you. It's not handing out second chances. You take what you were denied. You become what you were told you couldn't be. You build what they said would never exist. This is war now. A war between your old self and who you're becoming. A war between comfort and greatness. A war between fear and fire. So pick up your pain and use it. Pick up your scars and wear them like armor. Pick up your past and make it your fuel. You're done being the victim. You're done explaining yourself. You're done being underestimated. Now is the time to act. Now is the time to become everything they said you couldn't. Let your results be your revenge. Let your presence be your proof. Let your grind be your greatest weapon. Don't just rise, dominate. One day, they'll tell your story. They won't talk about the nights you cried. They won't talk about the battles you fought in silence. They won't know how many times you almost broke. How many times you did break. And still came back stronger. They'll only see the fire. The steel in your eyes. The force you've become. They'll call you unshakable. Unstoppable. A savage. A legend. But you'll know the truth. You weren't always this strong. You were made this way. Forged, pressed, refined by pain they'll never understand. You didn't get lucky. You got relentless. You didn't rise because someone believed in you. You rose because no one did. And that's what makes you dangerous. You're not fueled by ego. You're fueled by truth. By everything they tried to bury. By every scar they left behind. By every door slammed in your face. They'll try to act like they knew you'd make it. Like they always believed. But deep down, they remember what they said. They remember how they treated you. They remember laughing. And now they'll be forced to watch. As you become everything they said you couldn't. So walk tall, not out of pride. But because you earned this, every second of peace, every inch of growth, every moment of silence you now command, it was paid for in full, with pain, with sweat, with sacrifice. You're not just a survivor, you're the storm they didn't prepare for. So let the world watch, let them whisper, let them wonder how you turned pain into power. Because now, you're more than a name. You're a legacy, a message, a reminder to every silent warrior still fighting to rise. This is what happens when you don't give up. This is what happens when you choose to burn the script and write your own. This is what happens when the one they counted out becomes the one they can't stop. So if this hit your soul, if you felt it in your bones, then don't just sit there. Subscribe, like, share this with someone who's still fighting in the dark. Because legends aren't born, they're built. And it's time the world saw the next one rise. That legend is you. Now they study your moves in silence. They used to mock your ambition. Now they mimic your confidence like it's theirs. They used to call you too much. Now they're afraid you'll take everything. But here's what they'll never understand. You didn't rise because you wanted revenge. You rose because you had no other choice. You were sinking. You were suffocating. You were disappearing. And deep down, something in you screamed, no. No to playing small. No to being invisible. No to letting the world decide your worth. That no, that was the moment everything changed. That was the crack in the wall. And from that crack, light poured in. Fire poured in. You poured in. You stopped being their victim. You stopped being their puppet. You stopped being their anything. And you became your own everything. That's what rising above is. It's choosing your own name, your own path, your own worth, regardless of who stays, who leaves, or who watches in silence. It's not about proving them wrong anymore. It's about proving you were right to believe in yourself when no one else did. You no longer seek revenge, because your presence is punishment enough. Let them choke on the silence you leave behind. Let them drown in the space you no longer fill. Let them sit with the realization they didn't just lose you. They lost the storm you were becoming. Rising isn't loud. It's consistent. It's disciplined. It's quiet victories stacked in the dark until they shine so bright they can't be ignored. They thought they were watching you fall. But really, they were watching you load the slingshot. They were watching you pull back so far that when you let go, you didn't just rise. You exploded, and you left a mark on every person who doubted you. A scar on every soul that tried to control you. A silence so loud, they'll hear it every time they close their eyes. Because now, you're untouchable. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Because what used to break you now builds you. What used to hurt you now fuels you. What used to scare you now bows to you. You walk different now, not because of arrogance, but because of certainty. You know who you are. You know what you've survived. You know what you're capable of. You earned your strength. In blood, in silence, in every invisible battle no one saw but you. So don't look back, don't explain, don't apologize. You don't owe them understanding. You owe yourself the victory. Because when they thought you were weak, they were witnessing the beginning of a legend. You just didn't know it yet. Now they do. And it's too damn late to stop you. Now that you've changed, don't look back like you owe the past anything. Don't shrink yourself out of habit. Don't dim your light to make them feel comfortable. Don't explain the fire inside you to people who never bothered to warm their hands by it. You earned this version of you, this strength. It wasn't given. It was built, pain by pain, night by night, fall by fall. And now, you don't walk like you used to. You don't speak like you used to. You don't see the world through the same lens. Because you're no longer asking, am I enough? Now you're saying, I was always enough. You just weren't ready. You've transformed, not into someone else, but into who you were always meant to be. Before they tried to break you. Before the world tried to label you. Before they told you who you couldn't become. You shed the skin of approval. You cut the leash of expectation. You burned the mask they handed you. And finally, you can breathe. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You don't need forgiveness for surviving what was meant to destroy you. Own that. Own all of it. Own your power. Own your anger. Own your peace. Own your silence. They tried to define you by your past. They tried to chain you to your weakest moment. But you flipped the script. Now they'll define you by your comeback, by your presence, by your unshakable energy. You've stepped into something sacred now. Freedom. The freedom to say no without guilt. The freedom to leave without explanation. The freedom to choose you fully, fearlessly, and unapologetically. So let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them question your rise, because you're done explaining. From here on out, you walk in your truth, you speak in your fire, you stand in your power, and you own it. Now it's on you, because there's always a choice. Go back to being small, to biting your tongue, to hiding your power just to make them feel comfortable. Or move forward, into the fire, into the unknown, into the version of yourself that terrifies the ones who once controlled you. You can return to the old life, the one where you waited for permission, chased validation, and begged for crumbs of love and respect. Or you can burn the old script, the one they wrote for you, the one that said, stay quiet, be grateful,